Let's head to Christchurch, where residents from a suburb just north of the centre of the city are dreading the summer after years and years of problems with street-based sex workers. St Albans residents say they're being assaulted, their gardens are being used for sex acts, and condoms and needles are found on their driveways. And as the weather warms up, they're worried it will get worse. This year, the Christchurch City Council explored whether a bylaw was the answer. Last month it decided no, and the residents are now considering legal action. But amongst all of the political debate, meetings and legal threats, few sex workers themselves have spoken out. Until now. Logan Church went out to Manchester Street to meet them.
It's 9 o'clock and I'm walking up Manchester Street, just north of the city's performing arts precinct, but well south of St Albans. Firstly, I meet Lisa, who is standing on the footpath waiting for her next client.
There's a big drug underworld out here. We get cars driving up and down, yelling abuse at us, bottles thrown. I had a glass bottle thrown at me a couple of weeks ago. Bottles is common, eggs is common.
Lisa's a solo mum with a 12-year-old son. She works here to support her family as health problems have made it hard to find a regular job. She says she stays well away from St Albans.
I think the girls that are working up there that are doing all these things are displaying disgusting behaviour. I would imagine a lot of them is probably drug problems as well, because they become numb to... that's the thing with people that are on drugs, they become numb to what they do and their surroundings, and they just have a I don't care attitude.
The army blocked off the central city after the 2011 earthquake, forcing sex workers out of their traditional red light districts. The cordons were lifted several years ago, but even now some sex workers remain. Further up Manchester Street, still south of Bailey Avenue, there is a Salvation Army van where sex workers are eating, drinking tea and coffee. They're trying to stay warm. I meet Kelly, who has been working on the street for 22 years and hasn't been able to stop. She tells me it's not easy working on the street.
About 6 weeks ago, there was a carload of idiots that were here, and they decided to pick on one particular transvestite working girl, and they tried to run her over, and she rang the police. The police never came and seen her, and half an hour later they still hadn't seen her, and the people come back and tried to run her over again, just like she was a tough girl and she needed to get out of the way quickly. But the police, they say they care, they just don't really give a shit. At the end of the day, they come up and down here to get drunk drivers and annoy our clientele to make them feel bad. They're not here to give a shit about us until we're in the gutter, dead.
The sex workers out here are careful, trusting only their guts, and there is a good reason why. 2 women who worked on the street have been murdered. Valerie Manning was raped and found in the Avon River in 2011. Renee Duck-Manton was found burnt by the side of the road leading to Rakaya last year. Kelly says there is a lot of conflict on Manchester Street, but it's not fair to point the fingers solely at sex workers.
I know for a fact there is flats up there that are run by the corrections department. That house people coming straight out of jail. So if they want to start, throwing blame around, and they're saying that they're finding needles and shit like that around, well, they have a look at the people that are actually in that area as well.
Another sex worker, Foxy, tells me as a 12-year-old she was sold by her mother onto sailing boats in Littleton Harbour. It was a family tradition. Decades later, Foxy paints a grim picture of life on Manchester Street, which she believes contributes to some of the problems the St Albans residents have complained about.
20-odd years ago, it was a real sisterhood and we all looked after each other and worked hard. There was a tight net of looking after each other. Today it isn't. It's really dispersed, and there's trafficking going on here. Gangs with young girls out here.
So it's quite extensive.
Yeah. And there's a lot of drugs. It's pea infested out here, and it's really who's behind the girls that is the problem.
Sue, an outreach worker for the Prostitutes Collective, is also out here tonight. Sue says her job is to convince sex workers who haven't yet moved out of St Albans to do so.
At the moment there's only a couple of girls left down there, so we're just trying to make them understand that, it's best that they get back here this way. Yeah, it's just a couple of stubborn girls, I suppose, with their own reasons, you know. It's a difficult one.
Phoenix used to work north of Beeley Avenue and had a simple reason for moving.
There's no traffic down there. You just follow the work. And you kind of know when it's dead and when it's not, you know. And when there's nothing, you just got to move.
I asked everyone I spoke to whether a bylaw would help bring the remaining sex workers south. There was a mixed response.
No, absolutely not. There's no need to change it. They've tried it in Auckland, they've tried it in Wellington, it's not going to happen.
Possibly. I just think if it was me, then possibly, yeah.
What are they going to do, stand out on the footpath and police it? That's what they'd have to do. Who's going to police that?
Does that regulation wouldn't work?
I don't think it would. I think it's just a waste of paper.
But they all agreed infrastructure like toilets and rubbish bins would be a big help, not only for them, but to also act as an incentive to work in the city. I hop into Sue's car to accompany her on her almost nightly patrol up Manchester Street. The council's recent decision to abandon a potential bylaw is a win for the collective, who didn't want to return to what they call the dark days of regulation.
Down here, this is a wee spot. They go there. Bye, girls. That's Foxy and Jen. They're good girls.
We're now crossing Beeley Avenue into St Albans.
So we're coming up to Purchase now. It's looking good. It's looking very good. There's nobody there.
Tonight, no one's here, but Sue tells me if she finds anyone, she'll ask them to move on. She says often a good talking to does the trick.
I zoom up and down Purchase Street just to catch the girls that shouldn't be there late at night. Yeah, I get the naughty ones.
Looking around Manchester Street in St Albans, many houses have fences, driveways are blocked with gates, many padlocked. This neighbourhood has been described by its residents as being under siege. Matt Bonis and his young family have been living here since before the Canterbury earthquakes. And although regulation is off the cards in the near future, residents are getting ready for their next step.
We'll give it 6 months, and if it looks like we're going back to what we had in previous years, we'll just gather evidence together. That's what the residents are doing at the moment, and we'll look at going to the High Court.
Matt and the other residents are already gathering pictures of condoms and needles in their gardens, video of sex workers shouting, as well as pictures of business transactions taking place in front of their homes. He says media exposure and intervention from former lawyer and now Christchurch Central MP Duncan Webb has helped, and they now see fewer sex workers in the suburb. But Matt's not confident the council's new strategy, a community-led working group, will stop them coming back.
They have no idea how the industry works. They have no idea what the levels of nuisance are that actually occurs within a residential environment, and how incompatible it is with that. And they're very sympathetic. And the residents we're drowning in sympathy. What we're not drowning in is actually the wherewithal to do anything about it.
I asked all of the sex workers I spoke to if anyone from the council had talked to them. The answer?
No, they don't care. They get paid big money to just sit around and talk. Doesn't affect them, it's not outside their house, so they just don't care.
You can talk about it till the cows come home. People don't give a shit. They don't really want us here. We're a red light district, and as far as people are concerned, they don't want to talk about us, let alone do anything for us.
And the council's current approach is?
Oh, we'll just leave it till the next election. The new people will sort it, but it won't happen.
Have you ever dealt with the council? Has anyone asked you what would help?
No, not really.
The council confirms that no staff had talked to any sex workers at all. Its head of strategic policy, Helen Beaumont, says there wasn't any need to.
No, we didn't speak directly with the sex workers. We used the Prostitutes Collective as their representative and almost in the form of a union, if you like. They have a very good understanding of the situation for the sex workers on the street, so they were able to provide that perspective to us.
She says in the coming weeks, staff will be deployed to Manchester Street to look at options. But for Matt Bonis and the residents, they can now only hope that the sex workers that have disappeared from their doorstops stay away. However, only hours after I interviewed Matt, he contacted me. The sex workers were back. On Manchester Street for Checkpoints, Logan Church.